Hey folks, welcome to 37mm Ohio, a brand new channel dedicated to all things 37mm, enjoying our God-given Second Amendment and having fun being free Americans. Today we're kicking off our channel with this video covering basic setup and tutorial for making and loading 37mm bird banger or wildlife control rounds for your 37mm launcher. We'll cover some of the basic tools and components you'll need for the payload and loading process. We'll also cover these in later videos for convenience. Before we get into it, let's cover our asses. Because we're not experts or teachers, these videos are intended for entertainment only, not intended for education or legal advice. And of course, do not attempt to recreate anything you see in these videos unless you are 100% comfortable and willing to accept all responsibility, consequences, and ramifications of your own actions, should you make your own 37mm rounds. Follow your federal, state, and local laws and keep current on ATF rulings on the matter of signaling devices and wildlife control payloads. It is not our damn fault if you do something stupid and or illegal. Know your shit, stay out of jail. Always operate in a safe environment and be aware and respectful of the people and environment around you. Don't be a d***. As you see on the table here, you're going to need some basic tools and a few inexpensive investments that I recommend that will help make your reloading experiences more enjoyable. Also, we'll cover what components you'll need to build the rounds. Your basic tools and supplies: gloves, pick up a box of 50 or 100, latex, nitrile, and make sure they're powder free, more comfortable. A utility knife, blue shop towels, safety glasses, scissors, a 1/8 inch and a 5/13 inch hole punch, a 1/8 inch punch and small hammer, and a large clean surface to work on. Also, if you've got a large C-clamp laying around, it'll make your life easier when inserting primers, but we'll get to that later. One other thing, a caliper. Doesn't have to be expensive. I've got a plastic one that works just fine. Oh, and an empty spent 12 gauge shotgun shell. You'll see why later. I recommend the Lee Perfect powder measure, or at least a brass powder measure that adjusts from 40 to 50 grains. Hogden Pyrodex Triple FG, a funnel to ensure a clean and safe pour, Hogden green fuse, and of course a hot glue gun. A big one. With a ton of glue sticks. No, really, a lot of them. You'll need to pick your suppliers. I recommend Exotic Firearms in Oregon, which makes top-of-the-line 37mm hulls and live ammo. They've also got a great selection of reloading kits and education available on their website. I am not sponsored by them, but a shout-out on my video is the least I can do since they've always been willing to talk through reloading steps and troubleshoot my own fuck-ups and suggestions on how to not fuck up again. Another great supplier is Exotic Ammo, out of Florida. They've got some affordable plastic reloadable hulls that I still use to this day for my bird banger rounds. They also deal in live rounds and components. Finally, Amazon. Believe it or not, you can find quite a few of your basic supplies right there. This is where I buy paper tubes, plastic end caps, paper end caps, rubber bands, hot glue guns, and sticks, and you can also find firework and rocketeering fuses. It just takes some searching. I'm not going to give free advertising to them. You'll see everything in the video. Feel free to message me if you need some help finding things. Constructing your first bird banger payload. If you're interested in buying your hulls and payloads from a retailer like Exotic Firearms, that's cool. But something tells me you came here for tips on making your own, so let's do it. Start with your empty, thick-walled tubes. Amazon has a bunch to choose from in black, silver, red, white, and blue, whatever. They will all come with paper tube end caps. Another route you can go is using plastic tube ends. Be sure the diameter matched your tube. In this case, that's 1 1/8 inch diameter, which is the inner diameter of your paper tube, which is a perfect fit. Keep in mind, the paper end cap is the safest choice, because it will mostly burn off. The plastic end caps run the risk of breaking apart, so be sure to only use these in controlled environments where this would not cause harm to people or the environment. I'm only trying them out for this round of loads, but I'll be using the paper end caps in most of my payloads going forward. Insert the end cap and create a flush bottom in your payload. Then fill it with 3/4 inch to 1 inch of hot glue. Now let it cool naturally so it sets properly. Don't put them in the fridge, don't put them in the freezer, don't put them outside in the wintertime. Let them cool naturally so it settles. I've got one ready to go. You'll see I'm using the caliper to measure the depth of my hot glue. If I didn't use enough, here's an opportunity to add more. Then let it cool again. Once your hot glue settles and cools and is no longer sticky to touch, you're ready to complete construction. One of the things I like about the Lee Perfect powder measure is that it's easy to set up and gives you a uniform pour each time. It's about $30, so if you want to use your own powder measure for this step, that's fine. Just be sure you're getting the proper grain pour each time. For the bird banger, you can use up to 50 grains, but I get a decent report from about 45, which is also my lifting charge. An expert told me that it's actually the thickness of the tube walls, the thickness of the hot glue on each end of your payload, and the quality of the construction that gives you the best effect, not more powder. So don't get carried away. This is also where the ATF gets involved, so please know your rules and stay out of jail. I'm going to pour some triple FG powder into my powder measure using a funnel. I don't have to be exact since my pourer measures it for me, which is why I recommend this small investment. The Lee powder reserve detaches from the base. It rotates to on and off so that you don't spill powder while attaching and detaching. Go ahead and put your 45 grains into the payload. Now it's time to create the barrier between your powder and the rest of the hot glue. This is where you'll need that 1/8 inch hole punch, either the hammer version or the squeeze version like you probably used in school. Punch a 1/8 inch hole in the center of a paper end cap. I'm using that empty 12 gauge shotgun shell to persuade the end cap evenly down the hull and get a tight, compact fit. Take your green Ogden fuse or other firework fuse and cut it to roughly 3.5 to 4 inches. Feed the fuse through that hole in the paper cap so that it goes into the powder. I give mine a little twist so that the fuse settles nicely into the powder. Once your end cap and fuse are installed, it's time to fill the rest of the tube with hot glue. I'll fast forward through this, but be sure that your fuse stays securely inserted into the hole in powder. It's perfectly fine that your fuse is getting covered in hot glue. The outer layer of the fuse protects the inner cord, which is the flammable component. Once your tube is filled, it's time to use another paper end cap with a 1/8 hole that you'll use to cap the payload. Here's a tip I'll share with you. Use scissors to snip 6 cuts on the sides of that end cap. It will help with sliding the end cap into the top of the tube without making a mess. Slide the cap down the fuse, being careful not to pull the fuse out. You'll see how those snips make it easier to insert that cap to create a flush end. Push the cap gently to make it flush. Other kits may come with flat paper discs. Those work well too. I prefer the caps with the sides as they create a stronger bond. And there you go. Your Birdbanger payload is complete. Let it sit overnight to naturally settle and cool. Come back for the next video where we'll walk you through loading your payload into the hull to make a complete live round. See you next time.